Well, please, I hope you're comfortable. We'll go over this Longchenpa text. Again, this is having to do with the basic space of phenomena, Dharmadhatu. So we went over the chokshaks. And one of those, it's to leave all appearances, just let them be, in the sense of not grasping or speculating or overanalyzing and things like that. So this really starts to go into how our mind is related to our sense phenomena, our phenomenal world. Uh, so let's see what Longchenpa, what else he has to say. Of course, Longchenpa was a 14th century yogi and a renowned scholar, and he was able to really kind of compact and simplify and streamline the Dzogchen stuff in a way that I think he made it very accessible. Okay, so the text says here, timelessly and spontaneously present, this pure realm is without transition or change. With the perception of the true nature of phenomenon within basic space, wisdom arises continuously as the adornment of that space. Not created or achieved, it abides timelessly. Like the sun in the sky, it is amazing and superb. Within this ultimate womb of basic space, timelessly and spontaneously present, samsara is wholly positive, nirvana is positive. Within the wholly positive expanse, samsara and nirvana have never existed. Sensory appearances are wholly positive, emptiness is positive. Within the wholly positive expanse, appearances and emptiness have never existed. Birth and death are wholly positive. Happiness and suffering are positive. Within the wholly positive expanse, birth, death, happiness, and suffering have never existed. Self and other are wholly positive. Affirmation and negation are positive. Within the wholly positive expanse, self, other, affirmation, and negation have never existed. Labeling takes place in confusion, for what is non-existent is taken to exist. Given that the nature of things is similar to that of dream images, which have no basis, how exceedingly strange is it to fixate on samsara and nirvana as though they existed in their own right. Everything is wholly positive, a supreme state of spontaneous presence. Since there never has been confusion, is no confusion, and never will be confusion, conditioned existence is merely a label. It is beyond the extremes of existence and non-existence. Since no one has ever been confused at all in the past, no one is confused at present, and no one will be confused later on. This is the enlightened intent of the original purity of the three planes of conditioned existence. Since there is no confusion, nothing exists as some unconfused state. Supreme, naturally occurring awareness is timelessly and spontaneously present. Since there never has been freedom, is no freedom, and never will be freedom, nirvana is just a label, and there is no one who has ever known freedom. There never will be freedom, for there never has been bondage. Complete purity, like space, is free of being restricted or localized. This is the enlightened intent of the original purity of total freedom. In brief, within the ultimate womb of basic space, spacious and spontaneously present, whatever arises as the dynamic energy of its display, as samsara or nirvana, in the very moment of simply arising has never known existence as samsara or nirvana. Whatever arises in a dream due to the dynamic energy of sleep does not actually exist. There's only self-knowing awareness, the blissful place of rest, extending infinitely as the supremely spacious state of spontaneous equalness. This is the first section of the precious treasury of the basic space of phenomenon, demonstrating that samsara and nirvana by nature do not stray from basic space. Okay, so just to give an overview there, if we use the lake analogy, and you start spinning that whirlpool like I was mentioning before, you're never separated from the lake, and you've never not been water. You've never not been the lake's water. So even if that spinning is starting to go out, well, it's still part of the lake. So that's nirvana, when that spinning is losing its momentum. And so nirvana has never really existed apart from that lake either. And just like that, no matter how we kind of create this world with our cognizance, it's still cognizance, still within the realm of pure consciousness. Everybody kind of understanding that part? How samsara and nirvana are equal? You could also think of a dream. If you dream of hell or heaven, if you dream of hell and you're escaping hell, it's all still cognizance, still mind, just the mind doing stuff. All right, so let's start the second section here. Given that basic space is by nature primordially and spontaneously present, it is infinitely pervasive, with no division into outer and inner. Without any limiting boundaries, it is beyond division into above and below, or any other direction. Beyond the duality of spacious versus narrow, awareness, pure like space, is the very expanse free of the elaborations of a conceptual framework. The magical expressions that originate within unborn basic space are completely indeterminate and not subject to any restrictions whatsoever. They cannot be characterized as things, for they have no substance or characteristics, and that their nature is like the panoramic vista of space. They are unborn, spontaneously present, and free of any time frame, any beginning or end. The essence of all samsara and nirvana is awakened mind, spontaneously present, not occurring, not originating, and not finite. It has not come from anywhere, nor does it go anywhere at all. The expanse of awakened mind, with no linear time frame, does not come or go, for it is infinitely pervasive. The true nature of phenomenon, suchness, has no beginning, middle, or end. This state of infinite evenness, equal to space and pure by nature, has no beginning or end. It is beyond any time frame. It is unborn, unceasing, and has no substance or characteristics. It neither comes nor goes, and cannot be characterized as something. Yeah, so this really corresponds with Nagarjuna's presentation and Dignaga and many others in the field of their logic, and kind of reducing concepts to absurdity and never really positing an existential statement. They were holding some concept about what our mind really is. So always kind of leaving the label off of it. Of course, in the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Nagarjuna always broke these things down using that syllogistic method in the Tetralemma, and so also broke down time, actually. And we kind of have this in our realization. We see that awareness isn't really subject to time, and then we also have it in our logic, okay? If you ever want to dive into that, it's quite a read. Mula Madhyamaka Karika by Nagarjuna. First century, though, very, very long time ago. So, the text says it involves no effort or achievement or anything needing to be done. The ground of suchness itself has no periphery or center. Since it is non-referential and uninterrupted, it is the expanse of equalness. And by the way, they have some practices that help you with that equalness, like looking back at the one who's thinking, looking back at the one who's aware. All these types of approaches kind of turn it all inside out into space-like cognizance without a reference point. Even that funny meditation where you picture yourself as a banana. When you imagine yourself as a banana, a lot of people start laughing and it feels very light. And that's because you've lost the seriousness of self-grasping for just a moment. And there's the equalness there. As long as we're dividing and we have all our little attachments everywhere, we have a kind of multi-layered, subdivided mind world here. And there cannot be really equalness with that. But just like the ocean is just one ocean, it has an equalness to that. Just like space has a kind of uniform equalness, well, our mind does too. Mhm. So since the true nature of all phenomenon is equalness, there is not a single thing that does not abide within the expanse of that equalness. The scope of awakened mind is a single state of evenness in which everything is equal. Yeah, so you can kind of imagine yourself pulling back the rays of the mind. You may have various things that you're attached to right now, even kind of subtly. And so you can pull all these preoccupations back to their source, to the basis, and abide in a great evenness there, okay? So, since it is unborn, an infinite evenness so vast that it is equal to space, the scope of equalness is without interruption. Therefore, the fortress of infinite pervasiveness is spontaneously present and beyond extremes. The fortress of the spacious and timeless expanse has no division into higher and lower or in between. The fortress of unborn Dharmakaya encompasses everything impartially. The fortress of the precious secret is unchanging and spontaneously present. The universe of appearances and possibilities, whether of samsara or nirvana, is perfect as the timeless fortress of a single state of equalness. On this infinite foundation, extending everywhere impartially, the stronghold of awakened mind does not distinguish between samsara and nirvana. Its imposing and lofty summit is the spacious expanse that is the true nature of phenomenon. At the very center of the panorama of this uncreated nature, the entranceway that frees one from developmental effort is wide open. Within that palace, adorned by the spontaneously present array of wealth, the king, naturally occurring timeless awareness, sits on his throne. All aspects of the dynamic energy of that awareness, manifesting as thoughts that proliferate and subside, serve as ministers, exercising control over the domain. The Holy Queen, naturally abiding meditative stability, is accompanied by the royal hires and servants, naturally arising enlightened intent. This encompassing expanse of supreme bliss is naturally lucid and non-conceptual. Okay, so in that paragraph we have a lot that we could take notice of. So it says here, if you're ever pondering this, when they talk about the dynamic energy of your mind, many times we talk about appearances. So sounds, and remember we're in a collective, so your mind's not in a standalone. It's creating based off other people's creations too. So kind of reflecting one another. But it's not just what we see and hear and all that. It's right here. It tells you dynamic energy of awareness manifesting as thoughts that proliferate and subside. And you can look at your thoughts just like the energy of your mind. As I say, sort of sparks of your mind. Or even you can think of them like a bell ringing, echoes of your mind. And then also, here it says, when we abide naturally in awareness, well, then wisdom, our natural enlightened wisdom and intention comes out. And it also says that it's naturally lucid and non-conceptual. So your wisdom mind is like that. It's more subtle, but way more powerful. Okay. So within that very context, unwavering and beyond imagination or description, mastery is gained over the entire universe of appearances and possibilities. This is the vast dominion of the basic space of phenomena. If one abides in that domain, everything is Dhammakaya, with no wavering from this single, naturally occurring timeless awareness. There is an unfabricated, timelessly ensured transcendence of effort and achievement. Given that the sphere of being, without any hard edges, is inclusive, everything, just as it is encompassed within the expanse of which there is no differentiation or exclusion. Neither the realms of the six classes of beings, nor even the pure realms of Buddhas exist elsewhere. They are the realm of space, true nature of phenomenon. Given that they are of one taste and naturally lucid awakened mind, samsara and nirvana are fully encompassed within the scope of awareness. And by the way, for me, accessing your lucidity, accessing the kind of baseline equilibrium part of your mind, that was tricky because you want to think about it. As soon as you think about it, you're overriding it in a sense. Almost like if you're looking at your desktop computer and we opened up a C++ programming language, well, we'd be looking at that. We wouldn't be looking at the assembly or the binary language that's underneath. Well, just like that, we have a kind of layered cognition. And if we're in the thoughts, there's no way to see any of the other languages of cognition, including this subtle, lucid cognition. We have to be responsible to totally come into that. But what I will say is that if you're trying to access that or look for it or get familiar with it, dream yoga is really great, but look for intuition. In fact, all you sincere meditators out there, I invite you to look for when your intuition is right. You have a very subtle kind of voice saying, "Oh, move that out of the way," or "Oh, you should go do this." It could be really anything. It could be silly from "Put your shoes away, the dogs are going to eat them," to intuitions about people and situations. But what I started to notice is this intuition was always right, especially as my surface mind cleared up. So I'm at a point now, speaking as a matter of science, okay, I'm not trying to brag or anything like that, but I'm at a point now where I totally trust my intuitive mind. It's kind of the only way to go. And it'll present you with intuitive thoughts that just kind of come out of nowhere, just like a real quick flash, okay? Let's say you're walking out of the house and you have this quick flash of, "Oh, move your shoes." Uh, and we've all had this already. That's why it's familiar to us, which is great. We're not creating anything new here. Um, Now that's a more vivid one. Move your shoes, kind of more obvious, but this goes deeper, okay? And it's part of your natural state, your equilibrium, your natural beingness, and definitely should be familiar to you. We've all had our natural happiness, confidence, playfulness, creativity, and we've all had our natural intelligence, our wisdom mind. It's just that we kind of um, overrode that. Yeah, if you're anything like me or other people, we get lost a little bit from that, disconnected. But these types of practices help us reconnect and point us in a direction of how to find our natural state again. It's very beautiful. So, in this treasury of the basic space of phenomenon, the source of everything, nirvana is timelessly and spontaneously present without having to be sought. So, within Dharmakaya, unchanging, non referential, and infinitely extensive, the manifestation of the outer and inner universe is Sambhogakaya, and the natural arising of things like reflections is Nirmanakaya. Since there is no phenomenon that is not perfect as an adornment of the three kayas, everything arises as the display of enlightened form, speech, and mind. Moreover, without exception, the countless pure realms of the Sagatas arise from the very same source, mind itself, the expanse of the three kayas. Yeah, very good to just know that the three kayas are a reference to your mind. Uh, those have really been externalized in Mahayana and also Vajrayana. So, as well, the cities of the six classes of beings, whose nature is that of samsara, are simply reflections arising within the scope of the basic space of phenomenon. Moreover, the various manifestations of birth and death, pleasure and pain, are like phantasmagoria within this expanse, mind itself. Although they do not exist, they appear to, and in manifesting, they have no basis. And so they are like clouds in the sky, simply occurring adventitiously due to circumstances. Yeah, and we don't get nihilistic here. Um, for example, it says all the beings are like phantasmagoria, but just because they're dreamlike, you still see people when they're dreaming, they really think it's real. So that gives us the middle way where we don't abandon compassion for beings. We're not kind of dismissive, but people really believe it's real. So we can notice the dreamlike nature, the insubstantial essence in all these things, but at the same time, the middle way shows us kind of that there's still a conventional world that people are subscribing to here, and it causes a lot of pain and suffering, even if it's not real. So neither existence nor non-existent, they are by nature beyond extremes, fully encompassed within the sphere of being, free of elaboration. Yeah, and maybe you can think of like a video game. We get so upset, or a comment online maybe really upsets us. But does it even exist? There's nothing there that even existed ever. It was all just programming languages making images appear by combining colors, and yet we get upset over it. It's the same thing in the waking world, in the non video game world. So I'll continue reading. Mind itself, that is, the nature of awakened mind, is pure like space, and so is without birth or death, pleasure or pain. And I will say also, as you come into your awareness nature, you should be able to see or have intuitions. It's going to come in the form of that lucidity that I was mentioning. You should be able to see past lives or evidence for past lives that you've had. You may even want to look into your childhood. There may be some really strange things that you came into this world with that you can't really attribute to your parents. But even if you could, that just means that you have a similar karma with your parents. Um, you know, just because you have something in common with your parents doesn't mean that that can't be a past life clue either. So not only that, when your mind is free of fixation, you're also able to see the future very clearly. In fact, um, not in a way where you can conceptually predict it necessarily, but you have a kind of intuition, and it's only because the future is here already. You see, all the causes and conditions, everything, the recipe, the ingredients for the future is here. So the deeper your insight into every moment, so to speak, the deeper you abide in the pure presence, then even looking at a glass of water, you see much more there. It's not just a glass of water, which is our constructive observation, but there's much more. You'll begin to see the entire life of that glass and that water. And, I don't want to put anything in your head, but at the same time, I don't want to negate the magic in this. There's a lot of magic in it. And I think it can be a nice kind of thing to have an intuition about your past lives or some kind of little insight, even maybe a vision of it, of past lives. Now, some, my teachers have always said, some you don't want to remember. Like, they always say, like, if you're being if you're a rabbit being chased by a coyote, for example, you don't necessarily want to have that recollection because it could be scary, know. Um, but if you have a lot of stability, then it won't really matter. But yeah, there are many sort of layers of code here that when you abide in the presence are revealed to you. When you're stuck in your thoughts, there's no way for you to see all these layers of code. Just look at the selective attention experiment for proof of that. As long as we're fixated on one thing, then we can't see everything else. Very logical, straightforward kind of fact there. All right, so I'll finish this paragraph. Oh, we'll finish the whole second section. It's coming to an end here. So it has no substance to delimit it. Is that, am I pronouncing that right? Delimit. Okay, maybe that's related to delineate. So anyway, it has no substance to delimit it, and is free of the phenomenon of samsara and nirvana. It cannot be characterized as something, and being infinitely spacious expanse, it is unchanging, without transition, spontaneously present, and uncompounded. Given that Buddhahood lies within the Vajra heart essence of utter lucidity, everything is a naturally occurring realm of bliss, the very context of sublime enlightenment, a state of spontaneous equalness. This is the second section of the precious treasury of the basic space of phenomena, concerning the universe of appearances and possibilities arising as a pure realm. Yeah, so interesting stuff there. Can correlate with heaven on earth and uh, lots of other ideas that we find. Um, that's why Dzogchen's quite radical to start to look for to see the pure land that's here now, to have pure vision. It's very radical, but very liberating. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody.